Jai Hind to all. Today we will discuss the unit number first of the compiler design. The topic is introduction to the compiler. So today we will discuss about the introduction, language translator, language processing system, compiler interpreter, compiler versus interpreter, as well as various parts and phases of the compiler. So let us start from the programming language. So basically programming language are the notations which are used to communicate with computer. Mainly there are two types of programming language. First one is the high level programming language and another one is the machine level programming language. High level programming language are those languages which is nearer to the user, means user can easily understand, easily write those programs in those programming language. But machine level language are those programming language which is nearer to the machines. So machine can easily understand the program written in the machine level programming language. Now high level language basically play the vital role in the software development. But this you can say these language in which we want to express our computational needs are significantly different from the language recognized by the real machine. So there is a need of a translator. Translator is a interface between the machine as well as the user. When user writes program in a high level language, translator will convert it into the machine level language. So formally we can define the translator as a language, you can say translator is a processor, is a program that translate an input program written in a programming language, that is called the source programming language, into functionally equivalent program of the another programming language, that is also called the target programming language, right? So apart from the translation, a translator should also have a capability of the error detection. So any violation of the source language specification would be detected and reported to the programmer. Now the complete figure of the translator is given here. It will take the source program as an input and produces the target program as an output. Basically when we want to convert our high level program into the machine level code, there is a requirement of the series of processors, or you can say series of translator, because the work of conversion is not done by the single processor. If it will be done by the single processor, it will becomes the complex task for a single processor. Though you can say the simple particular processor will require a lot of code to be write down. So basically to write down the working, to denote the working, to depict the working of the conversion, people have a series of various processors. They will also support the compiler. Due to that, they are also called the cousin of the compiler. So series of particular processors is called the language processing system or the cousin of the compiler. So let us discuss. First one is the preprocessor. After that we will require a compiler. After that there is a assembler. After that linker and loader, and linker and loader will produce the exact machine code. So basically we will discuss the working of each processor one by one. First one is the preprocessor. Preprocessor basically takes the source program as an input and produces the modified source code as an output. So before the compilation, the source program is processed by the preprocessor to prepare it for the compilation. The preprocessor program creates modified source program from the original source program by replacing preprocessor directives with a suitable contents. The new source code acts as an input for the compiler. The preprocessor perform the various tasks that are given as it is. First one is macro processing, second one is file inclusion, third one is rational preprocessor, and fourth one is the language extension. Basically, whenever we will write down the macros in our program, has preprocessor is used, right? So whenever we will write down hash define pi 3.14, right? So pi is called the macro definition, and 3.14 is called the macro value, right? Yeah, you can say that is called the set of instructions that will be replaced by a particular definition. So whenever you will write down the program using the preprocessor directives, you will write down the particular code by using the definition. So whenever the code get preprocessed, all the value of pi get replaced by the 3.14. Second application of the preprocessor is file inclusion. So file inclusion means whenever we will write down a simple C program, we have written basically include, after that file name, .h, right? Means you can think of stdio.h, conio.h, so means studio.h, conio.h. So what is the meaning of that? Meaning is that whenever this code goes to the preprocessor, right? So we have taken out the various predefined built-in function that is given into the particular header file, right? So we have to replace that the content which is required in our program by the help of a preprocessor. So preprocessor play the vital role for the particular inclusion of the files, right? Third one is the rational preprocessor. Rational preprocessor means basically some programming language provides the capability to extend, right? Certain features can be extended by the help of preprocessor, right? Whenever you will written double hash, it means a SQL statement in C. So what happens whenever we will write down something with the double hash? So C compiler confirm it is a call for the database, right? So it will place a call for the database routines to perform a certain query. So when we want to interact with the database through C, the extension can be provided by the help of a preprocessor in term of relational preprocessor, right? After that, another capability of the preprocessor is the language extension. Various features of the language can be extended by the help of a preprocessor directives. Now we will move towards the second processors, that is called compiler or interpreter. So compiler or interpreter takes the modified source code as an input and produces either the in case of compiler it will produce the output code in a machine code in form of the machine code, or it can produce the assembly code as a output, but in case of interpreter it will produce the results, right? If it will produce the assembly code, then assembler comes into the picture, right? That is the third type of processors. So some compilers that produces assembly code, that is passed to the assembler for the further processing, right? So assembly code is a mnemonics version of the machine code in which name are used instead of the binary codes for the operation, and names are also given for the memory addresses. For example, I have written move R1, R2, right? So this is a naming nomenclature. So this type of code is called the assembly code, right? Next next processor is linker and load editor. Basically, large program get compiled into the small pieces by the compiler. So to run the target machine code of any source program successfully, there is a need to link the relocated machine language code with binary files and other relocatable object files. So loaders and linkers program are used for the link editing and loading of the relocatable codes. Link editor creates a single program from the several files of the relocatable machine codes, and loader reads the relocatable code and alter the relocatable address. To run the machine language program, the code with altered data and commands is placed into the correct memory locations, right? Now we will move in a depth about the compiler. So basically, what is the compiler? A compiler is a program that reads a program written in a high level language that is also called the source language, right? And translate it into a functionally equivalent program in target language, right? The target language is usually assembly language or the machine language. During the translation process, the compiler also inform the programmer about the error, right, that are present inside the source program. So basically, this is the working of a compiler. You can see it will takes the source program as an input and produces the target program. It may be a machine code or it may be a assembly code, right? So some compiler produces the machine code and some compiler produces the assembly code. So basically now we will think compiler converts the source program written in high level language into functionally equivalent machine code or the object code or the target code. All of the words are synonyms here. Machine code, object code and target codes are the same nomenclature for the target program, right? Then target code will be called by the user to process the input to produce the output. I have depicted it inside the figure, right? This is a compiler. The source program I have written in C, suppose. So it will generates the exe file, target program. It will takes the data and it will produce the result simultaneously, right? So whenever once the particular code get compiled, you can alter the data, you can get the different results, right? So by changing the data, the exe file generate the different results, right? So there is no need to recompile the source code to for the different data, right? So here you can see if this time means the time from the source program to convert the target program is called the compile time, and the time required to convert the data, input data, right, to take the input data and produce the results is called the runtime, and the combination of both is called the execution time, right? So here in case of compiler, compile time as well as runtime are different, right? And the execution time is a summation of the compile time as well as runtime. Now there is a possibility of the another translator that is called the interpreter. Basically, interpreter is a processor, or you can say is a translator in which data and source program are input. So by providing the source program as well as data as an input, it does not produce the exe file, or you can say it does not produce the target code or object file as in compiler. The interpreter produces the direct results by performing the operation of the source program on its data. This model basically represented in this figure. So at the this is an interpreter, this works as a translator. It will takes the source program and input data simultaneously at a beginning, and it will produce the output. It never produce the object code, you can say target code, or you can say exe file, right? So in this case, all of the times, compile times, run times, or the execution times are synonyms to each other, right? So basically, interpreter directly executes the source program line by line according to the given inputs. That is, translation and the execution of the each statement are carried out side by side. Thus, separate execution of the source program is not required. The line by line execution of the source program provides better debugging environment, right? Debugging means error finding capability. Then the compiler, because it checks the error likes out of bound arrays indexing at a runtime, right? The major drawback of an interpreter is that the execution time of the interpreter program is generally slower as compared to compiler, because whenever the data gets changed, input data gets changed, what happens? We required again translation, right? So every time data will becomes changed, the execution of the source program with data will be required. So due to that, the performance of the interpreter is slower as compared to compiler. Second thing, we will see what is the advantage of the interpreter. So basically, interpreter has a number of advantages over the compiler. For example, it can handle certain language features which cannot be compiled. For example, we can say programming language like APL, that is normally interpretable language, right? As it involves the features about the data such as size and shape of array, which cannot be deduced at the compile time, right? So this this type of features which cannot be compiled can be interpreted, right? Another advantage of the interpreter can made portable code. Why it made portable code? They do not produce the executable file. That is, they never produce the machine code program. So if there is no machine code program, then it will easily provide the platform independency. The machine gets changed, once again you have to generate the exe file, you have to run, not generate the exe file, you have to run your program with the data, it will produce the result on that machine. So exe file never gets generated in case of interpreter, but in case of compiler, exe file will always be generated, right? So machine specific detail are inside the exe file, right? Executable file. So executable file is always machine dependent, right? So it never provides the platform independency. But in case of compiler, we never generate the exe file. So what happens? It provides the platform independency because exe file never gets generated, right? This is a comparative analysis of the compiler versus interpreter. So it is compiler is a translator, but interpreter is not a translator, it is a simulator. Second, in compilation process, runtime and compile time are different, but in case of interpretation, compile time and runtime are same, right? Compiler reads the input program and translate it only once, but in case of interpreter, interpreter reads the input program over and over to compute the results. Compiler generates executable file or the object files, but interpreter never generates the object file and or you can say executable file. It simply runs the program, right? The execution time of a compiler is less than that of interpreter because compiler reads the input program only once and occupies less space in the memory. The execution time of the interpreter is more than that of the corresponding object program because in the interpretation process, each line must be scanned and parsed prior to the execution and it occupies more memory, right? In case of compiler, debugging is very slow, or you can say debugging is not up to the level, but in case of interpreter, debugging is fast and up to the level because it produces the error line by line, right? Because it scans the code line by line. Due to that error finding capability of the interpreter is very high as compared to compiler. If you will think about the size and complexity, compiler is more in size and complexity, but interpreter is less in size and complexity. Now we will move about the parts or the phases of a compiler. So basically the translation of the input source program file into the target assembly language file can be divided into the two stages, or you can say two parts, that is known as analysis of a source program. It is also called the front end of a compiler, right? Second one is the synthesis of the source program. This is also called the back end of the compiler, right? So analysis part or the front end of the compiler transform the input source program into the intermediate code. Basically the intermediate code, sometimes called the IR, intermediate representation, is a machine independent representation of the source program, right? The synthesis part, or you can say the back end of a compiler, takes the machine independent intermediate code and generates the target assembly code, right? The synthesis part, or you can say the back end, deals with the machine specific details like registers, number of allowable operators, and so on, right? Basically two-stage model, or you can say two parts model, is depicted by this figure. The front end of a compiler takes the source program as an input and produce the intermediate code as an output, right? The back end of a compiler takes that intermediate representation as an input and produces the target program as an output. So question is that why we are not we will not write the entire compiler program in monolithic manner. So basically writing down the compiler into the two parts, two stages, have a certain advantage. First advantage is that take the front end of a compiler and attach different end to produce a compiler for the same source language on different machine, right? Second advantage is that take the common back end for the different front end of the compiler. Several different language on same machine can be compiled, right? Or you can say we can construct the compiler for the several high level programming language on a single machine. This figure clearly illustrates the working. If you will think, you want to develop a compiler of a particular programming language, like I have said it is a C, that will run on different machines, right? Suppose machines are M1, M2, M3, M4 and so on, Mn, right? So how can we write? We can write front end code for the C, right? For the C. Basically we can only write the code from the source code to intermediate code representation parts, right? Second, whenever intermediate code will be generated by that front end, you can write down the back end for the different program machines, right? For basically back end is specific to machine, right? Dedicatedly written for the particular machine. So you have to write down the back end for the different machines and you have to merge it. So particular this front end and this back end, the C compiler for machine 1, suppose this one, C compiler for machine, this is machine suppose I, then machine I, and once again you will go for the machine N. So you will generate the compiler for the machine N, right? So writing down a single front part and different back end, you can generate so many compiler of a particular programming language, right, for different machines. Second thing is that we want to develop the compiler for a single machine, right? And compilers are of different programming language. What we have to do? We have write down the single backend and different languages front end and club them, right? And club them with the back end. So suppose this is a C programming language, this is a Java. I have written for the C++, right? Python. So what happens? This particular C front end and back end for machine M1 will becomes one compiler. C++ front end and back end will becomes the second compiler for the same machine. Similarly, for you have written the front end for the Java, and Java compiler will attach with the back end of the machine M1. You can once again get the compiler for the Java, right? But here necessity is this one, intermediate representation. Basically, whenever we will writing down the compiler, intermediate code must be universal. Means there is a single representation. Otherwise, different peoples use the different type of representation. Then it is this particular contemporary organization of the compiler is not possible, right? Now, this is a question, and this is a very nice question to see why we will take the particular two stages or two parts compiler. You can see, suppose we want to create a compiler for n programming language L1, L2 and ln over n machines M1, M2 and mn. How many codes we have to write down, right? So you can think of this. We want to create compilers for n language and over n machines. So how many codes you have to write down? Our simple answer is, if it is monolithic, so each machine will contain n compilers. So you have to write down n compilers for machine M1, n compilers for machine M2 and n compilers for machine Mn, right? So on, right? Okay. So total how many compilers will be there? So your answer is n cross n compilers will be there, right? But whenever you will write down n front end, right? How many front end? N front end, because front end is specific to the programming language to whom you want to develop a compiler. So for the different programming language, you have to write down the front end, right? After that, for each machine, you have to write down the back end. And once again, for the dedicated back end, you have attached all the front end. You will get the compiler for the different programming language to that machine. Similarly, for the second, attach all the front end with the second machine back end and so forth, right? So in this manner, you will get the compiler for all the machines of all programming language, right? So how many codes will be required? N codes will be here and n codes will be here. So total 2n codes will be required, right? So if suppose n is 10, so you can see 100 codes will be here, 20 codes will be here, right? So which is better way to write down the compiler? So two-stage compiler design is a better way, right? Now we will move towards the analysis part in greater depth. So the analysis of the source program, or you can say front end of the source, front end of the compiler, is responsible for analyzing the input source by breaking it into the smaller entities, that is also called pieces, and checking for the syntax and verifying the semantic, or you can say meaning, and after that generate the intermediate code, right? So the front end of compiler is divided into the subparts. That subpart is called the phases, because the work of the analysis is very large, so we can subdivide the work, right? So that subdivision is called the phase, right? So what is the phase in definition manner, in formal manner? So a phase is an independent task in the compilation process which transform the source program from one representation to another representation. So on behalf of the independency between the task, there are four types of phases in the analysis part of a compiler. First one is the lexical analysis, second one is the syntax analysis, third one is the semantic analysis, and fourth one is the intermediate code generation. So what is the use of the lexical analysis, or why lexical analysis is required, and what is the functionality of the lexical analysis, we will discuss here. So lexical analysis is the very first phase of the compiler. That phase is also called the scanning phase, right? It is also called lexical analyzer, is also called the scanner. So lexical analyzer or the scanner reads the source program in form of the character stream and group the logically related characters together that are known as lexemes, right? For each lexemes, a token is generated by the lexical analyzer. Basically, a stream of tokens is generated as an output of the lexical analysis phase, which acts as an input for the syntax analysis phase. Tokens can be of different types, namely keywords, identifier, punctuation symbol, operator, right? The syntax of any token is token name and value, where token name is the name or the symbol which is used during syntax analysis phase, and the value is the location of that token in the symbol table. For example, suppose something is written integer a in C programming language. I hope so. It is clearly understood. The lexical analyzer scan this particular character stream, right, one by one, and group the character stream into the meaningful or a logically related characters. So if you will think int is a logically related characters, a is another logically characters, how can it identify whether they are logically related characters? Basically by the help of a patterns, by the help of a automaton, by the help of a regular expression, it can identify whether the particular character stream that is written inside the source program is logically related or not, right? So after looking at a particular pattern, it can identify this is a logically related, and it will also identify this is logically related. It will also identify this will also logically related characters, right? On behalf of that particular logically related characters, it will decide the token. So these logically related characters is called lexemes. So what is the lexemes here? Lexemes is the integer a semicolons, right? Integer a and semicolons. And which type of lexeme is, or you can say which class the particular lexeme belongs to, can be decided by the pattern. In the next unit we will discuss about this in greater depth, right? So int will be of keyword type, right? And a is of identifier, colon is a punctuation marks. So you can say these keywords, identifier and colons are called basically tokens. So it will generate a stream of tokens. A stream of tokens means there is no space, there is no line change, there is no tab inside the tokens name, right? So due to that, these are called the stream of tokens. Now let us consider a assignment statement of a source code for the translation process through the various phases. First one is the position is equals to initial plus rate multiplied by 100. If this particular statement get passed through the lexical analysis phase, what is the output of the lexical analysis phase? So you can simply say the position is a logically related, right? Assignment is another logically related entity. Initial is also a logical related entity. Plus is a logical related entity, and after that rate is a logical related entity. After that 60 and multiplication once again logically related entity, right? what happens according to the lexical analysis page, it will find out the type of that particular logically related characters, right? Or you can say logically related entities. So this logically related entities is called the lexium, right? By seeing which patterns, which rules it will follow, it will decide what type of class it belongs to. This is called the lexemes, right? On behalf of that, what particular lexemes follow a particular rules. So that rules which decide which class the particular lexeme belongs to is called the token, right? So you can see here, if position is concerned, it is a identifier. This is a operator, so we can directly write down the equal or assignment operator. After that, initial is a identifier, plus is a operator of type plus, rate is a identifier, so I have written rate, and 60 is a number, right? So I have written directly 60. Multiplication is an operator, so I have included the multiplication, right? So to differentiate between different type of lexemes of identifier types, we have subscripted it ID1, ID2, right, and ID3. Okay, thank you. In our next lecture, we will discuss about the syntax analysis.